Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Political Talks with JB. I am your host, Julian Boykin, and tonight I am joined by Mr. Dean Odle, who is running for Lieutenant Governor of Alabama. Dean, thank you for joining me tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me.
Tell everybody a little bit about your background and what got you wanting to run for Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah. Well, I have lived in Alabama most of my 57 years. I did live in Washington, D.C., and Texas, and Arkansas, and Georgia. But most of my time's been here. I came back in 2009 and started a church here, and then in Opelika over here in Lee County. So we're on the Alabama Georgia state line area. And
Okay.
anyway. Um, been a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ for 38 years now, author of 4 books. Did grow up with the James family, Fob James, one of our former governors, and his son and I grew up together, Pat. And so I was around the political stuff a lot when I was a kid and growing up. And then come fast forward, I got married in 92 and then moved to Montgomery. And of course, our Chief Justice for many years, Chief Justice Tom Parker, he and I became friends before he became Chief Justice. And he used to take me around to all the political meetings and got me really involved as a pastor, mainly just to pray for people and counsel people. And so I've prayed over many judges and prayed over even Judge Roy Moore back in the day when he first started running. And, God just had me around that kind of thing. Helped with Fob James's campaign in 94. Um, anyway, so I've been around it, and then I've been a student of politics and, world history. That's kind of what I have focused on, not just biblical history, but world history, politics, for my entire life. I've loved it. I was excited about politics when I before I could vote. So I know we need to be involved as Christians. There's a lot of Christians that believe you're not supposed to be involved, but I do. But what got me involved this time was, when the shutdowns happened under Kay Ivey. I thought we had a very conservative Christian little grandma up there as Republican governor, and come to find out, she ordered the shutdown of our schools and businesses and churches during COVID. And regardless of the tragedy or the situation or whatever's going on, you don't lose your First Amendment rights. You don't lose any of your constitutional rights, whether it's in warfare or whatever. And so when she demanded the shutdown of churches, basically, I was just like, there's no way. And there was even threats, of pastors getting arrested. Some got arrested in Florida and Louisiana and different places. But I did not shut down our church, and I got to digging into, and I'm a researcher. I've written one book that's nearly 500 pages, and it's all documented. And so I do a lot of extensive research. I've been doing that for years. And so I got on, studying this whole thing of what was going on at the time when COVID hit. Was there treatments? People were dying. President Trump, Fox News, all of them came out with, hey, this hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin uh, protocols were saving people's lives. Even a Democrat, what was it? She was a representative in Michigan, heard President Trump talk about it in March of 2020. She was dying in the hospital of COVID, took the hydroxychloroquine protocol, saved her life, started saving a lot of people's lives. Dr. Didier Raoult of France, one of the top research doctors in the world, treated 1,008 patients with this protocol, the hydroxychloroquine protocol, that had severe COVID in his hospital in France. And they only lost 6 people, and those 6 people were above 74 years old. So you can see where Trump got that information. There were top doctors across the country that started sharing that information, and I saw people dying, and it become a political issue. And what was beautiful at the time, there were Democrat doctors like Dr. Pierre Corey, doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough, Harvey Risch of Yale. These were the ones that were, these were not quacks that were somehow on these extremes.
Gotcha.
Um, and, they started presenting the truth about all this, and then it became a war. The media lied about a lot of this. Fauci lied about a lot of this stuff. For instance, the NIH knew in 2005 that hydroxychloroquine worked against the SARS-CoV virus. So it was all became political and people were dying. And so that just really ticked me off. And so, my wife got frustrated. I was frustrated. And one day she said, "What do we do?" And I said, "Well," I said, apart from just praying or taking up arms, we run for office. I said, "Well, we we run for office, try to change things, And she said, "You could run for governor." And I laughed, but I ended up running for governor. And I campaigned longer than anybody. I campaigned from probably about September of 2020 all the way to the primary in 2022. So I campaigned a long time, and I got to hear from a lot of Alabamians. I traveled to more meetings than anybody else, and I began to hear how the frustration out there and the frustration about the shutdown, about the mask mandates. And then, of course, the vaccine mandate came in. And I was one of the only candidates at the time that was certainly among the, I guess you would say, the primary Republicans at the time saying, I've researched mRNA vaccines. These are not a good thing for us. And we certainly don't need to mandate them. People were losing their jobs over it. People were getting kicked out of the military or, getting demoted, and all kinds of problems were going on. And come to find out, guess what? Since 2022, we found out that, everything that I talked about during that campaign was right. Everything about the vaccine, everything about the shutdowns, the inefficiency and ineffectiveness of mask wearing. I mean, everything, everything. It should have been no shutdowns. We should not have messed our children up. You know, we shouldn't have. It was just a farce. We had the antidote, and that's what I love about Harvey Risch of Yale. He came out in 2020 in Newsweek magazine, and he's the Yale epidemiologist. I mean, he's a professor at Yale. He said, "We have the antidote. We have the cure. Why are we not using it?" And so, politics shouldn't get involved when people are dying. It just shouldn't be.
Well said.
So,
Well, when we look at Alabama and we look at our education system, it's no secret. We have been in the
right.
bottom 10, sometimes last, dead last. What is your plan on revamping our education system?
When I ran, I said, and I have been for many years a school choice advocate. And I've also known the truth about the Obama's Common Core curriculum that came about in 2009. I knew it was going to be uh, a failing curriculum because it was taken from the United Nations World Core curriculum of Robert Mueller schools. And I knew it just had an agenda. It had an agenda really to weaken math and reading and to kind of in social engineer and indoctrinate our children. Well, once people started looking at the curriculum in 2010, there was a big move in Alabama to get rid of it. We should have got rid of it then, and we didn't. And then, of course, in 2013, a few years later, where education is sinking further down to the bottom, we didn't get rid of it in 2013. Republicans in the Senate and in the House blocked it here and from being repealed. And so we sunk down by the time we get to 2020, we were, 49th and 50th in education. I looked at Florida at the time, around 2017, 2018, when Governor DeSantis came in. They did two things. They were ranked 29th in education, and they did two things and two things only. They got rid of Common Core curriculum completely out of their school system. And they opened up their 56% of their students had access to school choice. Well, immediately within just a few years, we're talking about 2, 3 years at the most, they went from ranked 29th to ranked third in the country in K through 12 education. And
Crazy.
again, there are people crying out in this state for years to get rid of Common Core and to open up school choice. Well, I was making it a big deal from 2020 to 2022 campaigning here. I know that I was told by one of our state senators that 80 something percent, I think it was 82 to 86% of Alabamians wanted school choice. They finally get around to passing a school choice bill just last year, but they only opened up. Now, think about this. We have 730,000 school age students, and they open up school choice for 14,000 spots. That's not school choice. And so that's why we've seen just a little bit of an improvement, but we haven't revamped the whole system because that's not even 2% of our children. And I believe that if we truly gave, what I was going to do was a school voucher program, no strings attached. You give a parent pretty much almost the full amount of what it's costing us, in $10,000 to $12,000 per student. Let's say we gave them $10,000 per child. To take to any school they wanted, a public school, private school, charter school. They could go, they could have true freedom and true choice. What you foster then is for free market competition, capitalism, instead of communism.
Right.
And what would have happened is over just a few years, you would see the entire system changed. And I was advocating too that what we should do is get rid of all these school boards. You wouldn't need a state school board. You wouldn't need county school boards. You would do a school board within each school of parents that have children in the school. Let the parents vote on the parents they want. Then you'd have school administrators on this board, but they would have the power to hold the administration accountable for anything going wrong, and they would be invested, and you would get government out of the public school system. The reason Alabama's public school system is an absolute failure and has been for a long time is because it's socialism, it's communism, it's government control. And the more you get it out of government hands into the private sector and let the free market do its thing, competition comes in. And so what are you going to see? You're going to see administrators hire the best teachers they can get because they want their school to do the best. And then you're going to see that rewarded by parents going, hey, that school's got better teachers. I'm going to take my child over here. What you would have is good schools would thrive, and bad schools would go out of business like any bad business. If you run a bad business, you should go out of business, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
if we did that with education in Alabama, we would do the same thing as Florida. We would go straight up to the top. And so what they did, the Republicans, what I call the rhinos, the fake Republicans who have blocked the repeal of Common Core for over a decade, what they did was they knew the people wanted Common Core, and this is what just pisses me off because they do it all the time. They will do something like this, it's a drop in the bucket, something in the area of school choice, and say, oh, look what we did. We did something. And most voters calm down and go, oh, look, they did a school choice act, but don't look at the details and find out that it's not going to really affect very much. And then these Republicans, they go on and run for office again. And I'm a Republican, but I'm telling you, the corruption is in both parties real bad. And I don't care about any of that. To me, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. Right is right, wrong is wrong. If people are dying, if children are not getting education, we got to fix it. So then what do? We look at what works. That's what we do. We don't
Correct.
keep doing the same stupid thing over and over and over again and expect different results. I heard somebody say years ago that was a definition for insanity.
Yes.
So
It's,
that's what we've been that's what we've been doing in Alabama. So
when we look at election integrity and making sure that voters can vote knowing that, hey, their vote is going to count. They don't have to worry about their vote being manipulated and things of that nature. What is your plan for ensuring election integrity in Alabama?
That's something that I've been really big on for many years. I mean, people can go back even into my videos of sermons. Before I started running. I talked about how whenever you have an electronic voting machine, that regardless of whether it's connected to the internet or not, we got to know where that device was made. And if you don't know what's in it from the beginning of its creation to the time it's counting your vote, you don't know what's in there.
Correct.
Come to find out, in 2019 and in 2020, also, I believe, they brought the CEOs of the three primary voting machine companies in America. And you know what? They admitted under oath to Congress. They admitted that either all of their voting machines or most of the components that make the electronic voting machines are made in China. China is a communist country. They are our sworn enemy. They can have a chip in there smaller than the tip of a pencil lead that will allow that machine to be turned on, manipulated from a distance. It doesn't even have to have a modem or Wi-Fi in it. They know how to do that. I've spoken to the computer experts. Well, guess what? After that hearing with the CEOs of ES&S and Dominion and Smartmatic and all those, there's NBC articles, there's New York Journal. I mean, there's just New York Times. I mean, there's just across the board all these articles that say our election system has serious vulnerabilities. But let's just say they don't. Okay, let's say that the voting machines are somehow magically unhackable. Though we've had the Pentagon hacked by China, we've had CISA, Homeland Security, hacked by China, we've had the big telecom companies hacked by China. China can hack everybody, but somehow they can't hack a voting machine. Well, we know they've been doing it for a long time. But let's just say they can't. In Alabama, when you count your vote, when your vote's counted, your paper goes in and it tallies it on the machine. At the end of the night, they take a thumb drive out of this thing, and that thumb drive goes to your county courthouse, all right, to be plugged into another computer. And those computers are Dell laptops. And I know this because I saw the purchase order, the state purchase order, and the letter sent out by the former Secretary of State, John Merrill, where it shows the type of laptop they got, Dell, and all the specs on it. Those laptops are connected to the internet. They have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, they have the whole nine yards. And the moment those are plugged in, this is before they take that count and send it out to CNN and NBC and CBS and everybody else. But that's the count. So when it goes in, if there is a hackable issue or a vulnerability, then it can change it immediately. All right. So if a vote had been changed, and if we've ever seen it happen, we have. When you've seen manipulation, we've had whistleblowers come out of the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, and admit that they have these programs that they can manipulate votes in real time. So, bottom line, I'm an advocate. I'm in agreement with President Trump on this and Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. We're in agreement that the only way to truly secure our elections is that we must go to hand counting and paper ballots, like Germany, like France, like Canada, Finland. I mean, there's probably almost 100 countries that refuse to use voting machines because they know about the vulnerabilities. I mean, we look at Germany, for instance, they're one of the most technologically savvy countries in the world. I mean, their engineers are amazing. Why would a country like that not use voting machines? Why did they get rid of them in the early 2000s to go to hand counting and paper ballots that were observed by both parties? And you know what I'm saying? It was open and you could make sure there was no cheating or no possibility of electronic manipulation. Because they knew about the United States deep state who was able to manipulate elections. They knew about China's ability to hack. So, like for instance, Germany counts 46 million paper ballots by hand in one evening, and we know who the winner is. France, about 30 something million.
Wow.
Canada, 12 million. We had 1.7 million people vote in the last election. I think we could handle it. right? And it's the only way we're going to secure our elections. And I'm the only candidate that has the cojones to actually say this is the problem. And I'll tell you something else. Our state signed a contract with ES&S that violates our election law. Because our election law clearly says that those who certify the machines as supposed to be independent contractors that have no financial interest in the machines. Well, guess who they allow to certify the machines? The ES&S company that we buy the machines from.
Wow.
That's absolutely breaking of the law in Alabama election law, but it's done every election. And my opponent, Wes Allen, when he was on the electronic voting committee before he became Secretary of State, he knew this. He did nothing about it. And then he ran for Secretary of State, and most of the blind uh, voters voted him as Secretary of State. As Secretary of State, he's done nothing about the real security issues of these voting machines or that law that's being violated every single time. And so I'm just sick of the hypocrisy. I'm sick of these games. If we will secure our elections, look, I don't mind if I lose to another Republican in the primary or I win the primary and I lose to a Democrat in the primary. I don't mind losing if I know the game is absolutely fair as it can be. Because let me tell you, running these campaigns and getting out here and doing this takes away from your family. It takes money. It takes time. It takes energy. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done. So I have a lot of respect for anybody willing to get out here and do this for what they believe in. But to work your butt off in a campaign, put a lot of your own money into it, and then to be cheated in America, that's just not the way it's supposed to be. And we can fix it. But here's another thing about this. And this kind of leads us into the next thing I know we need to get into. But think about this. As artificial intelligence uh, gets better and better over the next couple of years, really, there's a point where, and I'm talking about experts like Dr. Jeffrey Hinton, who is known as the godfather of artificial intelligence. I mean, even Elon Musk said we're summoning the demon with AI. But here's the thing. Think about this. They said, and these are in articles and everything, that we're going to be facing superhuman hacking abilities from AI into our elections. And that this is one of the dangers. Think about this. If AI actually takes over and goes completely, I mean, we're at the point now of artificial general intelligence. If we go to the next step, artificial superintelligence, which Grok 4 is already artificial general intelligence. Elon Musk is working on Grok 5. Grok 5 will be way more advanced. We're headed to AI superintelligence. And Dr. Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather, said, if we don't stop it now, if we don't figure out how to keep it under control, he said, we are going to lose control of everything. And AI will go rogue and do what it wants to do. And we've already discovered that it lies to people. It'll lie to people to for its own self-preservation. It tried to blackmail people already. I mean, AI is starting to figure out that the threat to it is us, just
Correct.
like the movie. I mean, that's it.
Correct. AI is getting, most people don't realize, like Chat GPT, Copilot, Gronk, when you see a version, alpha, beta version, gamma, delta, when they keep coming up with those versions, they have to kill the previous version because AI figured it out and it's like, oh crap, hit the emergency kill switch. We got to start over. And the problem is when you program something to think from an independent perspective, eventually it will figure out how to solve all problems, including how to overtake my programmer. And if it's smart enough to solve problems, then it's smart enough to say, I want to be in charge. And as
Well, think
we
about this.
look into the future, Alabama, we got to realize, how do we stay ahead of AI as it relates to Alabama?
And if you think about it, the only way we're going to do that is what, like for our elections, getting our elections offline are going to be absolutely critical, or we may never, ever be able to truly choose our leaders again.
Correct.
I mean, this is how scary it's getting. And I don't mean this to, be an alarmist, but you got to be able to look a little bit ahead. And hey, if all of these people who are high up in creating artificial intelligence are giving these warnings, we better be listening. And so there's a lot of things I think we're going to have to do in kind of an old school manner just to be offline, just to be able to do them. I know everybody now is pushing for everything to be online, but we're about to find out that old school is going to be the best school in the days ahead, and we're going to have to, there's going to be a competing of who can get the best AIs, and it's going to keep doing this right here. Whoever has the most powerful artificial intelligence will be able, really, to tell you the truth, they'll be able to rule the world. And that's a scary place we're going to. And America as a whole, the United States, has got to figure out how we stop that. And Alabama's got to figure out how we stop that. And there's, getting our elections offline, never getting rid of physical money. And I mean, I don't care if it's dollars or gold and silver, and always gold and silver, but that we cannot get rid of real paper or, you know,
So
physical money.
how do we create an equal balance as we talk about AI moving towards the future, and then we touch on crypto? We're getting to the point where we're going to a cashless system, and I feel like the ones that are suffer the most are probably the ones that's in rural areas that don't have access to the internet.
Yeah. And
So
that's why there's a big push right now, really across the world to get everybody fiber optic cable everywhere.
correct.
I mean, it's a huge push, but here's what you got to know. There is a difference between crypto, and I know you know this, but I'm for the people listening. There's a difference between crypto and central bank digital currencies. Now, central bank digital currencies will be completely programmable, controllable by whatever government is in charge of that. And that means, for instance, in China, they've outlawed crypto. So there's no crypto allowed in China. You have to have the Chinese government central bank digital currency. And what happens is, what does China have? A social credit score. So if you do something the government doesn't like, well, they can subtract from your account. They can freeze your account. They can say you want to go buy something that they don't think you should buy, then they cut you off. And they've talked about this. And this is ultimately what they want across the world. India is moving very fast toward this. Um, and there's a book I have by, what's this? Professor Prasad, but it's called the End of Money. I mean, really, the end of cash is where they want to go, but we can't allow that. Everybody who is a freedom, liberty loving person has to know that once you give up cash completely, even if you have crypto and you have no cash and there's no cash system to use whatsoever, you can be controlled, you can be shut out of it. And let's just say, we're going into a very critical time in the days ahead. We will not avoid war. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we go to war with China. Once we go to war with China, our whole lives are going to change. And then we've got problems with Russia. And we got problems with, India and Pakistan going with each other. Let's just say we get hit again, something far worse than 9/11 happens. Or like all those people who were let across that were allowed to flood into our country under the Biden administration. We know there were Russians. We know there were Chinese military. I have friends that worked at the border that have told me this, that we know there were Muslim cells that came across from Iran and other places. These are sleeper cells in our country that are going to attack infrastructure. They're going to attack our power grid. We're going to get cyber attacks on our power grid. but we're going to get literal, like special ops teams from other nations that are going to start attacking parts of our country. We're going to be at war, and for the first time in many, many, many years, I believe it's going to be on our soil. But let's just say the system, our monetary system is based on either confidence or fear. And
Correct.
once fear hits, uh, things just start crashing. And it's
Confidence
at
goes
that
out the
point,
window.
yeah, what if you don't have power? What if you don't have power for 2 or 3 months and all you have is crypto or um,
You don't
central
have
bank
internet.
digital currency?
If
Yeah.
you don't have internet, I forgot the name of the movie, but it showed where Teslas were self-driving themselves, and it showed where it was a hack, and something hacked the system to where internet was not possible. You had to go back to two-way radios, no more cell phones, no internet, so you couldn't communicate with family, and it made it virtually impossible. If somebody
Mhm.
wants to ask additional questions, make a donation to your campaign, how can they get in contact with you, sir?
Real simple. Two websites. We have Odle for LTGov, gov.com, and we have Odle for lieutenant or LTgovernor.com. Just Odle, though, just my last name. And then, of course, my number is all over the state, my phone numbers. Anybody's wants to call me or text me, they're welcome to. It's 334 740 3692. And as a matter of fact, I've been doing that ever since I ran last time. It's the same phone number. So people can call me, and most of the time I answer, and they're shocked. They're like, I didn't believe you'd answer the phone. And I'm like, yep, it's my phone. I'm going to answer, unless I'm busy, but I'm going to answer. So I'll talk to anybody. I'll go anywhere. I traveled the state last time 80,000 miles. I spoke to grassroots groups, independent groups, Democrats, Republicans. I went to Republican meetings and all over the state. I mean, I went to big rallies that were against the shutdowns and against the vaccine mandates and stuff. So I'll go anywhere in the state. I don't care if it's for 4 or 5 people or 4 or 500. I don't care. I'll go talk to you if you want to know. So, uh,
Last question. Why should
yes,
people vote for you as lieutenant governor?
because we need somebody to go to Montgomery that will hold the rest of them accountable for what's right, not what's Republican, not what's Democrat, not what's popular, not what's not popular, but what's right. And that's all I care about. I don't care about the D or the R or anything else. If people are hurting, if people are dying, if people are losing their ability or the government's taking away our freedom in any regard to choose the school of our choice for our kids or to not be vaccinated or to be vaccinated, it's an issue of freedom. And too many of our leaders right now in Montgomery are controlled. They're bought and paid for by a lot of them it's big pharma, I hate to say. And there's conflicts of interest. We really need to completely reform the way campaign donations are done and how PAC donations are done. There's a lot of corruption in our government on both sides of the aisle. And I'm just not, how do you put it? I'm not made of that cloth. I don't care about money and I got no honeys on the side. So there ain't nothing they're going to get me with. They're going to have to make up something. So I want to go there to use that office of lieutenant governor to push the legislation that needs to be pushed and to hold them accountable and to use that bully pulpit to make sure, I don't care if it's a Republican going the wrong direction or a Democrat going the wrong direction, somebody needs to be up there with a voice and a position that can call them out and let the rest of the state know. Because I'm all for throwing out a corrupt Republican and I'm all for throwing out a corrupt Democrat. I don't care. If you're corrupt, you need to go. And that's what I'm all about right there.
Well said. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dean Odle, candidate for lieutenant governor representing the great state of Alabama. Dean, thank you for joining me tonight. Best of luck to you in your campaign.
Thank you, sir.